Hi guys, David Blanchflower, a former member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, spoke to Channel 4 about the central bank's move to increase interest rates. I and others have said that it is madness as it will not bring down inflation. He was first asked about the impact the Governor Andrew Bailey's action is going to take on the public that are already struggling. And he said the alternative to inflation, that being deflation, would result in unemployment, which would be much worse. Have a listen.
Case. I mean, last year the prediction for inflation was 4%. Yeah. We're now looking at heading towards 13%. And also, people have to live out these inflationary spikes, as you call it, and that is extremely painful for people.
Of course, you're right. Inflation is hurting people. The problem is that the alternative, which is unemployment, is much worse. And the governor of the Bank of England actually was right. The forecast assumed that this shock from the supply chain shock from the pandemic was going to go away. And he was right. We got hit by a European war. As long as there's not another shock and another one of that kind, then I'm pretty confident that inflation is going to go away. But the reality, if you think about the criticism, that the inflation has been generated by a pandemic and by a European war. So raising rates, it turns out, is going to slow the economy really fast. I mean, they're talking about a recession worse than the Great Recession. And so I think you're right that a package is likely to come. I mean, in a sense, the Bank of England is praying that the two leaders end up in October, November, or December having a giant fiscal package to compensate for what the Bank of England's done.
Just to be clear...
Now, just to interrupt for a second, I don't believe in the short term there will be a fiscal package presented by Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, whoever is going to win this. They may come up with something later on, but at that stage it will be too late, because on the 1st of October, the price cap increases for energy. And that's not just going to harm people who are purchasing gas for their homes, to heat their homes or to boil their kettles. This is going to affect industry as well, and this is going to feed into the rising cost of food and other objects and other items.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to be clear, right now, you're saying the Bank of England should have done nothing?
Well, I would have voted for a cut, because it's quite clear that the forecast horizon, they're actually forecasting themselves that inflation will be below target, output's going to collapse, and the very likelihood is actually the forecast they have is going to be much worse. It looks like the European zone is in recession, China's in recession, the United States is in recession. So how is little Britain going to avoid that with all the issues going on from Brexit? So I think they've put themselves in a position where they're going to have a screeching, handbrake and U-turn. It looks to me like a disaster. It looks to me that the Bank of England is actually, part of the story is their credibility is under threat. And I personally think that I would have voted for the opposite of what they did.
So he would have voted for a cut in interest rates, not an increase. Because if you're going into a recession anyway, then why would you raise interest rates? It's not going to impact inflation. The governor of the Bank of England even said that in a sense himself. He said inflation has been driven by external factors. So raising interest rates is not going to affect inflation. You're just going to increase the likelihood of a recession. And some economists have been predicting that this is part of the plan. Part of the plan is to engineer a recession, because this will collapse the economy in a sense, and it will bring inflation under control. But the consequences of that is going to be mass unemployment. And the economist at the time suggested, or hinted at that, well, Andrew Bailey is sitting on a salary of £500,000 more or less a year. So he's not really going to be impacted by this. And the people around him are not going to be impacted by this. So you have somebody who's making decisions that are going to deeply impact other people's lives, who's pretty well cushioned from this blow. As many people are saying, it doesn't make sense to increase interest rates when you're facing a recession. And it's not just a recession in the UK, as was pointed out here, the recession in the US and in Europe. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.